Adventures in Audioland. Welcome to Point Noir, home of the Point Noir podcast. Today we have a super special session for you, Session 0. You might be wondering, what's going on with Session 0? They don't start at 1? What's going on? Listen, it's an opportunity for you to get to know us and us to formally introduce ourselves as the new kids on the block in this podcast world. First things first, I'm your host, humble MC and tour guide, Jerry III, aka Kimono Jack. I'm pleased you're here with us, joining us at the Point, and I'm so very honored and privileged to introduce you to our home here at Point Noir. Point Noir is a long-form podcast dedicated solely to celebrating and sharing the travel stories of men of color. The intention is to be positive and to inspire others to travel as well. And to that end, we're also sponsoring passports for men of color so they too can explore the world. It ain't easy, and not everybody comes up in the same situation under the same circumstances. And that's our commitment to the community and this vision and our belief in the power of travel for men of color. Today is going to be interesting because rather than have a special guest come on the show, I'm actually going to briefly share some of my origin stories as an adventurer and traveler, and I'm also going to share the origins of this show, the Point Noir podcast. So, as always, you guys kick back, grab a beverage of choice, maybe just a shot because this will be a shorter episode, I promise you. I know you're going to get a lot of value out of it though, and we're just so happy to have an opportunity to officially introduce ourselves. So, as always, let's jump into introducing our guest, myself, Jerry III. Hey, you made it. Welcome to the session. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Jerry III, and here I'll tell you a little bit about my origin stories and the origin of Point Noir. Myself, I'm from the East Coast, Beast Coast, Pennsylvania, suburbs of Philadelphia. Grew up just a regular suburban lifestyle, and I think from a young age I always wanted to adventure and travel out and see different things in the world. I think I just like weird, interesting ideas and sights and nature, and just anytime you open a magazine and see something from the Sahara or see a temple in Thailand, it was just inspiring to me as a kid. I think I always had a drive to see something new. My family, however, did not travel too much besides the yearly family vacation to the Pocono Mountains or maybe hitting Disney in Florida a couple of times. So it wasn't until I was in my teens, I was 16 when I traveled to Canada. I went to Montreal and Quebec on a French study trip. I didn't study any French in class, so for me, being on the trip was just really a way to see something different. And I was just kind of charmed by how things were kind of the same at home, but then also subtly different. People had a different attitude, a different feel about them. You could hear French in the streets. The food was different. It appealed to me. I kept that idea in mind. And during college, I went to business school at the University of South Carolina and competed on the men's track and field team. Go Cox. I didn't really have an opportunity to study abroad. Of course, you'd hear stories and see your friends and some of your classmates do that, but the commitment to the team was just too great, and track and field's pretty much an 11th month a year sport, and that last month is for recovery. So I didn't really have that opportunity. And fortunately, when I started working, I worked for a French-based company and got my first trips overseas through them. I went to the center region of France where I started re-engaging the little bit of French that I remembered. I'd forgotten 90% of it. I slept in class, y'all, even through college. I tell my parents, I don't care. I slept. So I had to at least get my animals straight because I wanted to know what I was eating. I went to the center region of France, Clermont-Ferrand, and then we had an invitation to a conference in Paris, France. The trip was for 5 days. However, the conference was only for a day and a half. So I remember telling my colleagues, mind you, I'm like their kids' age. They're definitely my parents' age. When we got off the plane at CDG, Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, France, I told them, don't look for me, don't call me, don't ask anybody where I am unless I don't show up at this conference in 3.5 days. And I went and I walked the city, y'all. I had already looked up a whole bunch of music shops. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I'm also a professional musician. Looked at music stores. I looked up shops where I could get something good to eat. I just had a good time. And I really enjoyed the vibe of the city. So after the conference, we get back to the States, and I asked my manager at the time if there was an opportunity for me to maybe work abroad. And The answer I got was no. I asked if I could learn French. They actually had French teachers come into my building every day of the week, and the answer I got again was no. So I said, okay. And I put together a plan to quit my job and take a one-way ticket to Paris, France. Now, that whole experience and trip in terms of the preparation was a whole different realm. We're talking finances, mentality. I spent a lot of time focusing on mindset, but that's what it was for me. I knew there was something I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to let an organization or a place of employment tell me what I could or couldn't do. So I was willing to take a risk and take a gamble on that. I upped my French. I had some friends who lived in the area because we had young French consultants working at the company at the time, but essentially I didn't know anybody. And I bought that one-way ticket 4 months before I quit my job, and in August of 2014, I headed over to Paris, France. I had about enough money to last 3 months. I stayed there 18, worked my butt off as an au pair for 6 months, as a professional musician, as well as being a tour guide teaching Black history in Paris, France. And that was an amazing experience. And the history I had to learn to do these 6 to 8 hour lecture walking tours through the City of Light was incredible, but the experience was so fulfilling, so uplifting. It was amazing to see people. I felt like I was hanging out with my aunties all day. It was a 99.9% Black audience, and for some of them this was their dream. Paris was their dream city, and this was their first time going after retirement or for a celebration of an occasion. It was just so cool, and I was so honored to be their guest and their introduction to the city, in the same way that as a host of the Point Noir podcast, I'm honored to be here with you. I'm honored to kind of be your eyes and ears on the ground and tell you what's going on and introduce you to these fabulous guests we have. On the music side, as a professional musician, I've had the unique opportunities to engage in public diplomacy in the service of the U.S. State Department. What we do is we go down to different, usually Francophone African countries, and we perform, we do public speaking for the kids, we encourage children who are in English learning programs, we also share about arts and education and entrepreneurship, and that's been an amazing experience as well. I've traveled to Botswana, Mauritius, Cape Verde, Burkina Faso, the Congo, and on my own personal time to South Africa. And it's just been amazing. I've also been able to contribute and continue that journey after returning back to the States in 2016. So that's been kind of my broad travel journey. Spent some time in the UK, spent some time in Valencia, Spain. I would say it's maybe not typical for most because my deep dive was deep, but it gave me a lot of opportunity to research and study and learn and build great relationships internationally, and there's so much more I want to see. Adventuring and traveling has really been something that's changed my perspective as an individual, and I think it's something that everybody should experience. Switching subjects just a little bit to the Point Noir podcast, and all of that preparation I did for my first trip over to Paris, France, solo, moving everything with just a bass and a bag over to the City of Light. It was really hard to find other men of color who had taken journeys like that. And it wasn't until I got engaged with the tour company that I started learning these stories of really renowned figures. James Baldwin, Jack Johnson, the boxer, who had come over to Paris, France in an age where you didn't have email, where you didn't have a cell phone, where you didn't have an airplane that could get you there in 8 hours. These people were real adventurers, and I admired them because they would just show up, get on a boat for 6 to 8 weeks, and bam, what you got was what you got. So incredible and so empowering. And I thought that there might be an opportunity to create that in this digital space, on this platform, using voice, where anybody anywhere who's interested in this topic, particularly men of color, can tune in, listen, engage with our guests, engage with myself, and be kind of a part of this renaissance of Black travel internationally. Thus, Point Noir was born, and the Point Noir podcast. The name, if I may break it down a little bit, because I know there's some other groups or other hashtags that use the word noir. Point refers to just a place on the map. So to me, this is kind of the chill spot, the hangout point, the place where, hey, on your ride home from work, or maybe you're in flight going somewhere and you download an episode. We have these long form episodes. They last 45 minutes to an hour. You can kind of sit back and just feel like you're at the spot. This is the kickback spot. This is where everybody joins up, the point. Noir, I chose to spell it Noir without the E, so it's in the masculine form in French. If you are Francophone, and that represents the audience that this is tailored towards. We feature and showcase men of color, and that's what it is. So Point Noir, that's the name. Additionally, the sponsoring of passports is something that's very important to me. The opportunity to give back, and I don't even want to use the term give back. I want to say contribute or invest in somebody, something as pivotal as a passport in a country where 75% of its citizens in the United States do not have a passport. They don't even have the right to travel internationally via plane. That's huge. I wanted the show to be representative of a force for good, of putting our economic power to work for the community. I think that everybody who gets a chance to explore themselves through travel gets enriched by the experience if they're open to it, and I'm willing to make that investment in people. So this platform also serves as an opportunity to do that. So I'm glad you sat with us for this session 0. This is all I wanted to share in this brief introduction to myself and the origins of the show. And we hope that you'll stick around for the rest of our amazing guests and watch us as we can continue to grow and share our unique perspectives in the audio world. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Adventurers in Audio Land Session 0, our very unique introduction into this here podcast landscape. Really appreciate you spending the time hanging out with us for this shorter than normal session. However, we thought it was really important that you guys get a chance to understand where we're coming from and see where we're trying to go with this. Definitely look forward to having you join us for future episodes. Our guests, y'all listen, our guests are amazing. I cannot wait for the launch. The show's going to launch from Paris, France when I'm out there next week. And Juneteenth is definitely the date, so mark that on your calendars. Make sure that now you spend the time to subscribe, rate, and review the show so you can get updates to know when we're releasing our first episodes. Looking so forward to hearing from you guys on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. My handle is @Jerry_the3rd. You'll see it in the show notes. And we definitely need your involvement to get more submissions for men who might need passports. We're committed to that. So if you guys don't send them, you guys will literally see videos of me on the internet of finding black men in the streets of Dallas, and whoever doesn't have a passport, we're going to hook them up. I'm happy to do it. I think we can make this a smoother, more effective process. Again, this is session 0, your first introduction to hanging out here at Point Noir. So glad you could spend the time and hope you enjoyed your stay. As always, I'm Jerry the 3rd, signing off. See you soon.